Hey, Wyatt.
Oh, hey, Jake.
You ever get so scared you giggle?
Yes, I do.
Huh. Well, you ever giggled so hard you learned?
Totally.
Really? In that case, you ever learned so much you got scared?
Yes. And if you're like me, you should check out Super Duper Stitious,
A comedy podcast about the science of the spooky. I'm Jake.
And I'm Wyatt. We're a couple of scientists with a fondness for the creepy and the strange.
Join us as we tell tales of the bizarre before breaking things down through the power of science.
Do we have an answer for everything? No. But we do have a great time pondering it all, and hopefully you will too.
You'll laugh, you'll learn, you'll love it.
Check out Super Duper Stitious anywhere podcasts are found. We'll see you there.
See ya.
Oh, hello there, darlings. You've just caught me watching some old home movies from when I was a teenager. So many happy memories. This is where I locked my younger sister in the basement for stealing my lipstick. Look at her face. My favorite color, too, moonlight black. Oh, she was fine. It was only for a day while my parents were out of town. I gave her food and water. Let that be a lesson to all of you. Never steal from your siblings. She never did that again in a hurry. Oh, and look, there's my grandpa waving at us from his workshop, bless him. He was always in there at the end of the garden, banging and hammering. We never knew exactly what he was up to, until, of course, the police came knocking one afternoon. Apparently, his cabinet-making business wasn't quite as booming as we thought it was. Turns out there was plenty of people he knew willing to buy manacles and chains. At least the blood came off easily. So, the first story is Beckoning, and this one is a goodie.
I still remember this event vividly. This happened when I was a teenager, about 17 or 18. It was around the fall time, about September, I would say, back in 1996. I grew up and spent most of my life in Hawaii. I had a job as a barista at a small coffee shop on the north side of the island, Oahu, and at the time I was living on the east side. It was pretty late, about 10:30 p.m., so being that I worked the night shift, I had a pretty long drive home every night. My usual route sent me up a large hill on a road colloquially known as Windy Road, because of all the bends and winds in it. It also follows a deep gorge, and there have been fatal accidents with people driving off the side. Especially at that time in the mid-90s, there hadn't been a guardrail put up yet, or if it had, it was very new. So I'm driving uphill on this windy road full of bends and turns, and this section of the road is near my work, so therefore at the start of my drive home. As I'm driving up, I notice that there seems to be a fire uphill somewhere. Because of the turns in the road, I can only get a glimpse of whatever this is, as it's occasionally being obstructed by the terrain. I'm going uphill, and the gorge is on my right, and on the left is a farmland with a line of tall trees along the road. The fire seems to be on the left, apparently along or on the road up ahead. I drive a quarter mile or so and get to the point where the fire thing is. As I drive by, and I'm driving by at probably 5 miles an hour or so I can get a good look at it, the thing is extremely tall, unnatural looking, flame just burning on the side of the road. Let me describe it some more. It was about 10 to 12 feet tall, and maybe 6 to 8 inches in diameter, so extremely tall and thin, I really looked at it pretty good. The weirdest and most immediate thing about it was it seemed to be moving in slow motion. You know how the flames in a bonfire, campfire, or pretty much any kind of fire move and dance at a normal speed, right? This literally looked like it was doing that, but in 1/4 speed. It was really creepy, seeing a large flame move like that. The second thing I noticed, well, I remember purposely looking at the base of the flame to see if there was a pipe leaking, gas, or whatever. I didn't see that, but I'll admit it was kind of hard to see the ground, even though the flame seemed to go all the way down to it. Weird, I know. I did notice that at the bottom of the flame, where you might expect to see gas being ignited, i.e. that point where the presumably high pressure gas is changing from not on fire to on fire, and you see thin blue flames. Well, I didn't notice any of that, which I noted as looking totally out of the ordinary. It was like the slow orange column went right down to the ground, and it was almost a uniform thickness too, which also looked strange. It did taper off towards the top, but just the last 2 feet or so. So I remember driving by ultra slow, noticing all of this, and having the urge to pull over, get out of my car, and take a closer look. But then I remembered, that's what gets people killed in horror movies. I literally thought that and kept driving. The very next day, on my way to work, I took the same route. At this point, it's broad daylight, afternoon, and I'm driving on the same side of the road as the ghost flame. So I pull over to the right, where I saw it. I get out of my car and look around at the ground for any scorch marks, broken pipes, construction. There was nothing. Just untouched green grass. I was pretty creeped out. It just didn't make any sense. How could there not be any remains of the fire left on the ground? I knew what I had seen. It wasn't a hallucination, trick of light, or any kind of shadows. It was bright, vivid, and real. To be completely honest with you, the one thing I am most skeptical about are ghosts. But with that said, the road that I had my sighting on is known for ghost sightings. There are also ancient Hawaiian legends about balls of ghost fire flying through desolate valleys at night. So who really knows? I suppose the logical explanation is that there was a pipe leaking gas that somehow accidentally caught fire, was completely repaired in less than 24 hours, and didn't leave any burn marks on the ground. I think that's kind of unlikely. I was extremely open to metaphysics and alternate belief systems before this happened, and I still am today. But I've always been one to try and find a rational explanation to unusual things. Perhaps having this experience has kept me from becoming an absolute skeptic. I guess I'll never know.
When I was in my sophomore year of high school, I was struggling with undiagnosed depression and was very suicidal. I attempted to end things a few times throughout that period and was unsuccessful. Happy to say now that I've healed and I'm in a good place. Back when all this was going on, I used to walk to school every morning. There were a few particular mornings where I was struggling badly, with a lot of suicidal thoughts and this and that. Without fail, every morning, when things seemed to be at their heaviest, there would always be a lady at the corner before my turn, and she looked exactly like my mum, who killed herself when I was 5. She had the same reddish-brown hair, jeans, and brown jacket I've seen in the pictures, and every time I saw her, I felt so much lighter. I don't really know how to explain it. It was like my depression and heaviness lifted as soon as she come into my view. She never talked to me or even waved. She just leaned against a stop sign. After my sophomore year, when I started getting better and basically not wanting to die anymore, I stopped seeing her. I haven't seen her since then, and I really want to believe it was her letting me know that I would be okay. But I don't know. Maybe it was my subconscious trying to get me to be happier.
Paula, did you know there was a man named Saint Germain, and there's evidence that people saw this guy for hundreds of years, and he always looked the same. A lot of people believed he was immortal or even a vampire.
Wait, what? But Elaine, did you know that the government experimented with time travel, and the men who were involved in traveling got serious side effects like vomiting, bursting into flames, or melding in with the actual aircraft carrier?
Wait, what?
From quantum immortality, time travel, UFOs, ghosts, we talk about all things strange and odd with open minds and a sense of humor.
And by sense of humor, we mean a plethora of bad dick jokes. If you're nodding your head profusely and thinking, I like to talk about these things as well, then you're in luck.
Be a part of our Odd Squad and listen to us every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Go to Wait What?
3 A's.
Podcast.com and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Bye.
This happened when I was 13 and in the 8th grade. The middle school I went to was about a 15-minute walk from where I lived, so not very far. For context, my older brother and I grew up in East LA, in a small house that had a metal gate, and both the front and back doors had a black metal screen door and a wooden door. During the day, we would always leave the wooden door open and have the black metal door closed and locked. Except this day. I came home from school and had about an hour before anyone else would be home. I was really thirsty, so I rushed inside, grabbed a drink, and sat down at the kitchen table, which was about 10 feet away from the front door. I heard the metal gate open and was surprised, as no one should have been coming home that early. I got up to see who it was and saw an older man, probably in his 60s. He had short white hair and a long white beard. He was wearing an AC/DC t-shirt, torn jeans, and sunglasses. I remember thinking he looked a lot like Santa Claus, but dirty and creepy. He knocked on the metal screen door and asked if my parents were home. I was a dumb kid and said they weren't. He got a smile on his face and said that he collected donations for needy children. I said sorry, but I didn't have any money. He said sometimes children donated old toys. I said I didn't have any old toys to donate. He insisted that I must have had some toys I didn't want anymore. He was beginning to creep me out, and I noticed I hadn't locked the door when I came inside. I tried to keep my cool as I slowly and very carefully locked the door. I kept him talking so he wouldn't notice. A minute or two later, he wouldn't leave. So I decided I would pretend to check for toys and then say I didn't have any, so he would hopefully leave. I told him I would go and check, and as I turned and took a few steps down the hall, I clearly heard him yank at the door trying to open it. I didn't want him to know I'd heard, so I kept walking down the hall and into a room. I didn't have a cell phone, and the only phone in the house was in the kitchen. I thought about what to do and decided to stick with my plan. After about 2 or 3 minutes, I walked out hoping he had left. Nope, creepy Santa Man was still there. I told him sorry, but I didn't find anything. He sighed and said all right, he would check another time. He left and walked across the street. I watched from the kitchen window, peeking through the blinds, as he just stood there staring at my house for about 45 minutes. My brother and a few of his friends finally came walking down the street. As my brother came inside and his friends kept walking, the man walked around the corner and disappeared. I told my brother what happened and he went outside to look, but creepy Santa Man was long gone. When my mum came home, we told her what happened and she called the police. But they said to call back if he showed up again. Thankfully, he never showed up. Who knows what would have happened if I hadn't locked that door.
Oh, I can't stop watching these old home movies tonight. So nice to see me playing as a little girl with all my old toys. There I am, sitting on the living room rug with a headless Barbie and my Fisher-Price train set. I used to tie Barbie to the tracks with my shoelace and run that train right over her until she lost her head. Oh, how I laughed. So long, Blondie. Now, here's another eerie true story to sink your teeth into.
So, I guess I found out why people don't pick up hitchhikers now. As I was driving from Texas to Cali, around an hour after I started my drive, I saw this guy with his dog on Route 66 in the middle of nowhere, at least 3 miles away from even the nearest gas station. It's cold and I wasn't in a rush, so I decided to ask him if he wanted a ride. As it turned out, he was trying to get to a city in Arizona that was only 20 miles off my route, so I offered to let him join me on my trip. He seemed pretty chilled, quite normal, and looked like he cared for his dog. His original story was that he started walking in Mississippi. After some bullshit reason, he lost his job and everything went down the drain. So he walked, or hitched to Texas, where he got stuck for 3 months and was trying to get to his mom so she could help him out. I bought him food after asking if he'd eaten, which he said he hadn't. Okay, so those good deed endorphins are hitting just right, and I feel like I'm doing a good thing. After around 200 miles, he tells me he just called his mom while I was refilling my gas, and apparently she'd gone to LA for vacation, so he would just ride with me until I got to Cali. Well, okay, kinda weird and sporadic, but I didn't pay too much mind. We chatted, and again, it seemed pretty normal, until we got to Arizona. He started bringing up Trump and how the election was stolen by Porterfield during this timeline. Okay, red flag, but I just asked him to drop it as I don't like talking about politics. He then asked if I could drop him off at, and I quote, his house with his 2 girlfriends in a town in Arizona, which he'd inherited from his mom after she'd passed. He said he called beforehand and they were expecting him, after him being 3 months away. Also, he mentions, almost like nothing, that he has mild schizophrenia. I started putting it all together. Shit, I don't think he even has a coherent idea of what he's doing. So finally we get to Arizona, and we're on the last 10 miles to his first girlfriend, who he claims to love. And I start to wonder, am I about to drop off a mentally ill man 2 states away in the middle of nowhere where it's about to be freezing temperatures tonight? Oh, and plot twist, he apparently didn't even have a phone. As we got to his girlfriend's house, I told him I'd wait here just in case she ain't home, thinking I could at least talk him into letting me drop him off at a nearby homeless shelter or something. And exactly what I thought would happen, happened. He turns to me and says, I guess I got the wrong info and she don't live here. My other family members live here though. Yeah, let's just go to Cali to see my mom. As he sat down in the car, which I'd been driving with him in for over 9 hours, I told him that maybe he isn't in the best mental state at the moment, and his mental illness could be playing tricks with him. He flipped his shit and said if I brought up his schizophrenia again, he'd kill me To tell you the truth, he wasn't threatening at all, so I simply said, "Bro, I don't feel comfortable driving you to Cali, but at the same time, I don't want to leave you and your dog out in the freezing cold. Do you at least want me to drop you off at the nearest homeless shelter?" "Fuck it, and fuck you. I'll just walk to Cali myself," he said. This, in the mountain town of Arizona, where it's about to be freezing cold and he has no money, no food or water, with 10 miles down a pretty uninhabited road. And I'm pretty sure he didn't have family that lived in the house we just went to. And that was it. He just got out of the car and left with his dog. Man, I just sat there, dumbfounded, and then left, as at that point, there was nothing more I could have done. Dude, I don't know where you are, but I hope you're safe and get some help, for you and your dog's sake.
Well, I for one would never pick up hitchhikers. I mean, you can't trust anyone these days. The last time I did that, they tried stealing my purse. Can you believe it? Well, he did leave the car with more than he came with. A fat lip and a broken tooth. They don't call me Deadly Debbie for nothing, you know. Thieving scumbag. Anyway, that's just about all we have time for on tonight's show. If you're listening on one of those Apple thingies, don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a rating and review. Honestly, it only takes 10 seconds, and if I can do it, you can. I mean, not that I would review my own show, of course. Oh, and if you don't have an Apple thingy, use your husband's or your kids'. I'm sure you can find a way to hack into their phones. It's all for a good cause. See you next week.